Hello, Erica. How's it
Well,
going today?
good, good. I'm glad you could join me live. For those that are joining us live here on LinkedIn, we want to thank you. And definitely, as you join, tell us where you're calling in from, what city. And, we'd love to connect with you that way. So, first, let's just start
Absolutely.
off with some simple introductions. And today we'll be talking about what does your personal brand say about you? So, introductions. I am Erica Shaw, the Dream Career Coach, and I specifically help ambitious women position themselves to have the career and life of their dreams without sacrificing their values.
That's important.
And
Okay, and I'm
what
Leisha
about you?
Thompson. Sure. I'm Leisha Thompson, and I'm a published author, and I'm also a certified leadership reinvention strategist, which means that I focus on equipping workers' compensation and other leaders who've experienced divorce or caregiving to redefine your values, your vision, your goals, so that you can move forward comfortably and intentionally so that you can thrive. So
That
I'm
is,
go ahead.
I was
Sorry.
going to say, no, that's awesome. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm really looking forward to this conversation tonight because people often assume that personal branding pertains solely to a career.
Mm-hmm.
But we're gonna debunk that myth and talk about personal branding pertaining to personal lives outside of and within a career. But we are leaders everywhere, personally and professionally,
Yeah, I'm so
right?
glad you said that because the other thing that I would call out is a lot of times people only think about it when they're thinking about social media influencers as well.
Right.
So how do you show up online and things like that? But your personal brand follows you everywhere you go. So we'll
Absolutely.
talk
It
a little bit
should.
about that
It
as well.
should.
And as we have folks joining in the chat, definitely tell us where you're calling in from or watching from. We definitely want to engage with you as well as add any questions that you have. We definitely want to try to make sure we address as many questions as we can. So
Yeah.
let's just start off with what do you think? What would you say personal brand is?
So I look at it as what we create for ourselves. So being intentional, and I've been using that word focus and intentional just keep coming up for me this year in a multitude of conversations. So I'm going to stay right there in that lane for a little while. But I believe personal branding is what one intentionally creates as the identity that you want to present. So sometimes we're not mindful of how we show up or how we even see ourselves. And so I think what we want to focus on tonight is how it is so important, so vital beyond just creating, again, your branding for your career, but also this is what people used to call back in the day your reputation, right? What's your reputation? So personal branding to me is synonymous with what you want your reputation to be. So you can still have fun. I'm not saying be all serious all the time, but I am saying be intentional when it matters, depending on where you're going, the conversations that you're having. You don't have to be self employed, don't have to be a business owner to have a personal brand. So, what are your thoughts on that, Erica?
Yeah, I think it breaks down pretty simple for me to what are you known for?
Mm-hmm.
And that could be in the workplace, that can be with your family, it could be at your church, but everywhere we go, people have certain thoughts about us. And it could be that person is a great performer in the workplace. It could also be your branding could always be that you're the baby of the family, like as simple as that. And so one
Mm-hmm.
of the things we want to talk about is, thinking about what your personal brand is. Does it align with what you want it to be? What are ways to change it? And even if you don't know what it is, how can you find out what other people are thinking? Um,
Yeah.
so, why do you think it's important to think about your personal brand?
I think consistency matters. And so I teach my clients of how to redefine core values, because I know that that is not something that you just walk around thinking about. But I have learned through my own journey, and then also working with my clients, and then being a leader in the workers' comp industry for 22 years and having teams that reported to me the entire time. I saw a lot, I heard a lot, right? And so from that, it became very clear to me that, again, coming out of life changing events. So let's say you're a person who happened to have gotten a divorce, or you broke up with someone, or you were a caregiver and those phases of your life have ended. Those types of situations have a way of changing your views, from the standpoint of how you see yourself and how you see the world, how you see others. Those are the opportune times to take a look at what your core values are. I guarantee when you've been through some things, they change, and they should. But it's all about redefining them so that you know what they are. And then you can be intentional about recreating, even if it's applicable, to redefine your personal branding, which I think should be revisited minimally annually. What do you
Mm-hmm.
think?
Yeah, I think it is important because, and I'll talk a little bit about the workplace because, hey, we're on LinkedIn. So
Right.
I think, one of the things that a lot of people aren't aware of or enough aware of is how much our personal brand can impact the opportunities that we're able to get. So whether it is a promotion, whether it is transitioning into a different position, if we aren't showing up like the person that people think should be in that position, it really can affect whether or not we get it or not. And
Mm-hmm.
so thinking about, does your personal brand represent you the way that you want it to? And then, Shanavia in the chat mentioned it follows us. And so realizing that, that brand or whatever you're known for can follow you, even if it's something that was, 5 years ago. If you had a bad experience or something like that, that can follow you and have a halo effect, just like a good one can. If you started off and you were a go-getter and that's what you became known for, that can follow you as well. And so I think the big thing for me is people need to realize how much of an impact it has.
Now I want to just play devil's advocate a little bit. So what if you are a person who is seeking promotability in the workplace?
Mm-hmm.
And do we always want to show up in the way that we perceive the person who is filling that position wants? Or do we want to maintain our authenticity and our uniqueness, even though we have our eyes on a certain position? So I want to kind of just talk about that a little bit, because I know that,
Absolutely.
yeah, I know that sometimes that's a tough decision for people. And sometimes people, I don't want to call it selling out, but I think I am, for lack of a better
Or
phrase
not
right
being true
now.
to themselves.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have our eyes on a certain position. And so we perceive that what they want is A, so we give them A.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is A may not align with our core values. So then what?
Absolutely.
So then what, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll touch on that. So I've worked in corporate America for over 20 years. And let me just say, I'm always going to be a girl from Detroit. So it's coming with me, it's coming out. But I do think, being mastering, like, what is the message that I want to get across? um, Being a master in my area of expertise, and how do I display that? So there are certain things that we do need to show up a certain kind of way. Now we can have different conversations about the way you should dress, and things like that. But let's be honest, if you're shooting for a promotion and everyone is in business suits, you may not want to show up in ripped jeans and say, well, this is me. I've always dressed like this, so because people will, right, wrong, or indifferent, put labels on certain things. So I do think you need to get some trusted leaders in your organization to get some perspective on, what things are kind of a no-go type of thing versus, what things you have some flexibility in. Now, because I worked at multiple locations, like I've worked in manufacturing facilities, right? And so what is acceptable there from an appearance standpoint is very different from when I'm at the headquarters, when I'm walking by the CEO and things like that. But being true to who you are, there's ways to bring that out and still, meet the needs, I think, for most positions. Now, if there is something that definitely goes against your values, then that's a whole, another conversation.
Different conversation.
Because you definitely want to yourself and, your personality, all those things, your beliefs to shine through because, we need a diverse group to make decisions. There's been so many studies on how diversity adds, adds to performance and peak performing organizations. And so, what we don't want to do is downplay that and be the person in the room that just agrees with everyone. Like, you have a seat at the table for a reason and you need to use it. And so you definitely want to keep that authenticity.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched on that because a lot of people value integrity, but because they think it's not welcome by the person who they directly report to, they suppress it, which then becomes very challenging and can take away your joy about being there versus having a conversation with the person. And that's what I coach a lot of people on. It's just, it is okay to have to ask for a meeting and have your talking points already formulated. But there's a way to present that because sometimes the other person just isn't aware of what you're feeling or thinking, but give it an opportunity rather than to cancel it out or rather than to conform to what you think is wanted. Which still goes back to honoring your own core values, right? If a value is that you honor truth, you honor treating people fairly and equitably, and you see that it's not happening, that's a conversation to have rather than to ignore and think that your thoughts aren't valued. So I'm glad we're touching on that because so personal branding also includes vision, right? Everyone's core values are different, but typically your values include vision for your future personally and professionally. And we do bring our personal selves or some aspects of our personal lives to work. Back in the day, that was another thing that was said was check your issues, at the door when you get to work, be 100% focused at work. People tried to do that, but then it tore away, it started eating away at certain individuals, depending on what's going on in your personal life. You can't always check that at the door because you might need time to leave early some days. You might need an FMLA leave if you are taking care of someone, and that's a part of your responsibility too. So again, it goes back to balance as best as possible and definitely operating from a place of integrity.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to touch on that you mentioned is the having the conversations with your boss. And so I think one of the most important things is building connection in the workplace. As much as we can build relationships with our boss, with other people in our organizations, it makes these conversations so much easier because you want to be in a place with your boss where you can talk about one, how you want to show up. You want to be able to talk about what are your career aspirations, and have open conversation about that. And then you mentioned like the balance piece, talking about what things are important to you and, where you need flexibility. So all those kind of things for me are kind of on the foundation of having a connection and having the right relationships in place in the workplace. One of the things that we also didn't talk about yet is how do you know what your personal brand is? And what are you kind of known for if you don't know already? And the easy answer for me is just ask, right?
I would have
So,
said the exact same.
and so
Oh,
asking those people that know you well and that will also be honest with you. It's as simple as, tell me 4 words that come to mind that you would say describe me. And you can ask some people at work, you can ask some people at home, some people that you interact with at your church. It can be people from your sorority. Hey, soror, we'll talk about that later when we're done.
Right. Yes, soror.
But that's an easy way to get some feedback, and even using trusted people like mentors and sponsors to go and ask people on your behalf. That you may not necessarily feel comfortable approaching, and then being able to have a real conversation with them. And then once you get that data, you can look at it and say, well, one, what are the words that I would like to be known for? And look at the list that you have and compare the two. Where are the gaps? And then coming up with that plan for, how do I close those gaps? Or do I even want to? Right. So we talked about the whole authenticity piece. And so, if there's something that you think would, go too far and dip into your values to change because of the type of workplace, that you're in, you may make a different choice. But what are your thoughts on kind of finding out what folks think your personal brand is?
I think also asking the people that you might live with, people who are really going to be hardcore honest and tell you the truth. And granted, we may show up a little differently at home than we would out, professionally, but I think there's still value in knowing how the people who are the closest to you perceive you, because then again, to your point, you have an opportunity to determine if that's acceptable, if the way you're showing up to people is acceptable, or if that's an area that you want to redefine. So I also use redefine frequently. I think that redefining is great. I think it's a fantastic opportunity that every human has, but just doesn't recognize that they have that power within to determine how you want to project, how you want to be seen. Like we have that ability if we're self-aware and if we're honest. And sometimes that might include seeking help from an expert, because sometimes we can be so close to the situation that we can't see what others see, or we don't believe what they tell us, even though it's there and glaring, but we don't see it sometimes because we're in it. So it's helpful to ask for that 360 evaluation, especially if you're a person who values personal growth, which I would hope everyone would, because we all have the ability and we all have opportunities to continue to redefine and refine who we are, how we show up, what our goals are, forever. There's no limit to age, because some people think, well, that ship has sailed, but it hasn't. I just don't believe it has, because as long as we're still alive, we have opportunity, but it's up to us to be in control of who we are and what we do with the time that we have. So, what are some other benefits as we're talking about redefining or reassessing? What other benefits to that would you say? are there?
Well, I want to go back to one of the things that you mentioned about
Okay.
making sure you do the check with your personal life, because I would say that is one that is definitely overlooked. I think a lot of times we can put so much effort into worrying about how we show up and how we do things in the workplace that we can sometimes overlook that, because you may think that you're being an amazing mother and the way that you are saying things or engaging with your family members is having this great impact, and sometimes we miss the target, and
Mm-hmm.
having open conversations about that as well, and it can be like really a changing experience to do that, because let's be real, children will tell you how it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I can have a conversation with my son and get one kind of reaction, and I can have a conversation with my daughter and have a completely different interaction. And so to think that the way that I'm showing up for them is consistent or is in one specific way is completely inaccurate. And
Yeah.
so that's definitely something to think about. And the other thing that we didn't talk about is in your personal life is, what are you known for in your personal life with different family members. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of times I will talk to clients and they're talking about how overwhelmed they are because everyone comes to them for things, everyone wants help with something, they are the go-to person. And it's kind of like, well, what is your intention? Is that what you want to be known for? And if
Mm-hmm.
it's not, what do you need to do differently? And so
Mm.
remembering that your actions also need to line up with the personal brand, that you want to have. And so if you don't want to be the, oh, Shelly do it,
Right. Right.
kind of person, then you're going to have to show up and do things differently. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
those kind of things can affect relationships, and things like that. And so thinking about that as well as the impact, but also, sticking to, I want to be authentic to myself and the ways that I want to show up.
So what if someone says, I don't know how to even figure out what I stand for? Like some
Mm.
people, that's a big one for some people. They
Mm-hmm.
know and they feel on the inside that it's time to make some changes,
Mm-hmm.
but they totally are clueless about what the changes could or should be. So some conversation around that could be, what are your strengths?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do well? What comes easy for you?
Mm-hmm.
And are you utilizing that personally and professionally, either or? Are you utilizing it in the capacity in which you desire? If not, that's an area that could potentially be redefined.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we don't have to ask permission of anyone to make these changes, right? Because it's living in the totality or the fullness of who we are destined to be. Is that should be the goal, could be the goal, which means there are no limitations if you view yourself in that way, which I hope and encourage everyone to think bigger than what you see presently, um, in your career and in life, but particularly about who you are, because we are supreme beings and we sometimes only tap into a small portion of who we are
Mm-hmm.
meant to be. And I find joy in the opportunity to help people to figure that out. Um, we all can thrive if we choose to seek to learn how to
Mm-hmm.
make that happen. So it's again going back to just being curious and being becoming comfortable working in areas of discomfort, which is a whole different conversation. But that's a good thing
Mm-hmm.
also. Learn, embrace opportunities to become uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
so that you can expand, and growth doesn't necessarily come quietly and easily,
Mm-hmm.
which is why it's called growing. Because everything that grows expands intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's welcome, we have some Detroit and some Tampa folks in the house.
Yes, welcome, welcome.
Yeah.
One of the things that you mentioned was the, whole dream bigger and things like that. And so that is definitely my passion area for sure. I even have a workshop
Yes.
that's called the Dream Big Workshop. And so specifically, you mentioned like people will almost like pretty much settle, right? And so we
Yeah,
get into these
absolutely.
rhythms of, I just want to stay the status quo because it is safe. Or other
I
people
know
have
what it
these,
feels like. I know what
right,
it
have these
feels. I'm comfortable.
expectations of me to do certain things. Like my parents always said I was going to do this. Now I'm doing it. So it's great. Or I'm going to hold off, on my dreams
Oh,
until my kids are out of school, or I'm going to hold off until this and the other. And my whole push is really like, no, let's get clear on what you really want, and like what you really really want, because your dream
mhm.
should inspire you, it should motivate you, it should be the thing that pushes you to keep going, versus a to-do list, right?
Yeah,
And so how
yeah.
do we get to the point where we have the confidence and the clarity to go after it? So that is
Mm.
definitely an area that I try to push folks for sure.
So say that again. Your dream should, you want
Your dream
confidence.
should inspire,
Mm-hmm.
motivate, and
Mm-hmm.
push you to keep going. Because if it's
Right.
something that you don't really want, the minute that it gets hard, like you're not going to do it. You're going to stop. And
So let's.
so how do
Mhm.
you create a vision or a picture of the future that is that inspiring that you will want to go after it?
So I want to stay there for just a little bit, that because the things, sometimes people have the vision and they know it's probably the right time, but they choose to do nothing because of the stories and the thoughts that formulate in their minds. So things like assuming that because they tried something before 5 years ago, it didn't work out the way that they had envisioned. So they assume that it's not for them to make changes because it probably won't work out anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So they have the vision, they become frustrated because they don't do anything to make it become a reality. So then you're walking around carrying that frustration within, sometimes not even being aware that it's there or why you feel the way you feel. And that for
Mm-hmm.
people can be a little scary and frustrating. But that, along with just people who think it happened for my friend over here, this is what she did, and it was great. I watched her; she did a great job, but I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes carrying these beliefs that either were taught to us, we modeled them from maybe parents or other people who were close to us unknowingly, and
Mm-hmm.
then carried that throughout into our adult life, totally unaware of why we feel the way that we do. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it comes out in conversation. If you just happen to be around someone that challenges you a little bit, that says, well, why can't you? When people say I can't, I want to, but yeah, it's just nah. It
Mm-hmm.
just ain't gonna happen for me.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love
No
this.
real
and,
reasons,
and
but
right, right. And why not? And
mm-hmm.
why not? Because
Yeah,
that's go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, yeah, there's a few things that I talk about with clients about pretty much like why they aren't pursuing their dreams
Hmm.
is disappointment. So kind of what you talked about, like I tried this thing in the past, it didn't work. I quit, I give up on it.
Hmm.
Discouragement. So
Hmm.
having naysayers, that don't believe in your dream. And
Ooh,
so,
who
I
you're
had,
around? Yes, who you were around.
yes, I told my mom that I wanted to start this business. She said, "No, girl, you got a good job. You can't go off and do that." So listening to, who are the people around you that are they naysayers or are they supporters? The other one
Mm-hmm.
is confidence. So, you talked about belief. So, do you
Mm-hmm.
have the belief that you can do this thing? Because if you don't believe that you can do it, let me tell you, you're probably not.
Right.
And then the last one I would say is just the settling. And
Yeah.
so people just get into a place where they just feel content with, the status quo.
And they're content because they think that they can't do more or have
So
more.
it
Right.
can become like a vicious cycle, just kind of
It is.
rotating through those things for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which again goes back to why it's good to shake things up from time to time. And here's one thing. I know several things, but one thing I know for sure is that when you choose to redefine your future, a lot of times people won't take the first step because they think they have to know how to make that thing that they want or the image of themselves. They think they have to know how to build that, so they do nothing. And I
Mm-hmm.
am here to tell everyone, work that in reverse. Have the vision. You can create the strategy. It's step by step, but you don't have to know the entire journey forward, because that's just not how life works, right, Erica? Things change. We have to
Absolutely.
become nimble. But when you take one step toward your vision, which might just mean you get on the phone or you go to Google, and most of us visit with Google on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
Not everything you see there is factual, but you can get some information there to help you make another decision. That next decision might be, I need to contact an expert in A, B, or C just so I can talk through this. The
Mm-hmm.
expert could be Erica Shaw, it could be Leisha Thompson, it could be someone you work with who is knowledgeable in a specific area that you have interest in. But my heart breaks when people have a vision and just absolutely do nothing to ever start walking toward it, because you're missing out on all the things that you can gain by your journey, which tends to make you stronger as a
Mm-hmm.
person, more aware, mentally tougher. All the positives can come from opening yourself, allowing yourself to embrace opportunities toward what you have defined as something that is vitally important. And we're not necessarily talking about material things.
Right.
We're talking about a way of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
one of the things that I always end coaching calls with is, what's the best next step? Like,
Mhm.
all you got to do is come up with one.
Right.
Now, there
Just
may be
one.
more than one. A lot of times there
Right.
are. But, when folks are like, well, I don't know. I'm like, no, you're going to give me something. Like, what is the best next step?
Right.
Because we
Right.
can all figure out one step that'll
One
move
step.
me closer. So, like, I recently had someone where, like, their day is just completely out of order. They have a sick child, so they're off from work right now. They haven't been able to, like, they're working on going back to med school. They're working on like doing music, like all these different things. And I just said, I want you to write out, like, what is your ideal day? Like, what is your vision of the ideal day? And then we're going to pick one thing from that list that you're going to start implementing,
Mm-hmm.
and then doing that one thing always has a ripple effect. It helps you, like, one, build confidence, like, oh, I can do this,
Mm-hmm.
and get some motivation to keep going. Because what I'll tell you is, you have to take the action sometimes, and then the motivation comes. But
Absolutely.
just get started. Like, that is the
Yeah.
hardest part, getting
Yeah.
started.
Can I add to that? To
Hmm.
get started, also have a workaround and a target date. So you're going to start with this step on what day this week, or maybe it's next week, because maybe you need just a few days to get your mind right.
Hmm.
And so you say, okay, well, Monday. Okay, so then the workaround is, what if something unplanned happens during the specific time on that day that you said you were going to take that first step? What's your workaround? What could
Hmm.
possibly come up? Usually they'll think, I can't even do Monday because that's the day I go to the gym. And by the time I get home and take a shower and cook dinner, blah, blah, blah. So Monday's not your day then. What's the next available? I mean, just working through the strategy so that you have a plan, a day, a time, and what that first small step is going to be, but plan for the unexpected that could happen. If it can't happen on Monday, then what day? Or you block the time on Monday and you say, I'm honoring that time and space. It doesn't matter what else happens. This is what I'm committing to do. And that's kind of the mindset you have to have when you're planning to take the first step, which, to your point, usually will open the door to what that next step is that needs to follow. And that's how you start building the process or building the strategy so that you get where you want, and commit to not giving up no
Yeah, and I
matter
think
what.
that's one of the best ways that a coach can help a lot of times. Because I think when we are at work, right,
Yeah.
and we need to put together a plan, we know that we need dates, we need deadlines, we're going to have milestones, we'll have the critical path schedule, all those different things. But then when it comes to our personal lives, we're just like, I'm going to do better. I'm going
So
to
vague,
eat
so vague.
healthier. Yes. I'm going to start a business one day. And so
Right.
sometimes we need that push, that accountability from someone like a coach,
Right.
that can help us do that and reframe our thinking when it comes to, our personal lives. Because,
Mhm.
I've been guilty of it as well. So I'm not
Yeah,
just
we
talking
all
about other
have.
people.
No,
Um,
it happens.
Right. Well, you don't want to have like a real hard commitment. It's just like, well, I'll just do better. Or it's, I'm going to start on Monday. And so having that accountability partner, in a
Mhm.
coach, as well as a thought partner to kind of help think through what those best next steps could be, can be life changing. I know it has been for me.
Oh, absolutely. And and it's funny you're saying that because coaches have coaches. And a lot of people, when I've said that to people, people seem surprised by that because they think, well, you're a coach. Why do you need a coach? Because I'm going to keep growing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because
Every good
I
coach
am,
has a coach.
yeah, that's a core value for me, to always be a continual learner and to always elevate myself. Because there is no limit. I just want to always become a better version of Leisha. And it depends, different aspects of my life that varies. So I'm not saying all at once. I'm working on it all at once. No specific goals, not even annual goals, because a lot of people make New Year's goal resolutions, and I don't necessarily believe in making New Year's resolutions, because I think we should make declarations throughout the year and
Hmm.
commit, and kind of do what we're talking about. Have the vision, know why you value it, why is it important for you. Knowing your why can help you to stay in the path or the lane of working toward whatever it is that you choose, when you have a solid reason for why you want to make those types of changes. A lot of times we don't know why. We just think it looks good, it sounds good, and usually it's not going to happen because it's
Hmm.
just not a strong enough motivator,
Hmm.
because there's no why. Why is it important for you at this time? Those are some of the other things that need to be identified. So I'm wondering if there are any questions from our guest. If so, if you just type them in, we can address them as well.
Yep, definitely. If you have questions, let's throw them in the chat. We do have a couple of people that have been active, in the chat. I want to say hello to Orlando, Shanavia, Kalia. Thank you all for joining and engaging on the chat.
Yeah, definitely. So,
Well,
yeah.
one of the things, well, maybe we can talk about, do you have any, or what are ways that people can connect with you and work with you if you want to share that?
Sure. So my website is www.licia Thompson.com, and that will give an overview of most of the programs and services that I offer. I do have a book that I've published in 2021, and it's right here. So it's When Your Soul Whispers, and then it was written with strategies for leaders to redefine values and move forward after life's transitions. So it's a paperback, and it can be purchased on my website as well. And I do have a couple of events coming up, so I'll mention that now too, Erica,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want to forget. But this coming Wednesday, which will be the 15th of February at noon, 12 noon Eastern, I will be providing a free masterclass on the platform that is called Bloom. And it's a digital publication. It targets people with careers in the workers' compensation and other industries that interact daily with an injured worker who has a workers' comp claim. So you're looking at the physicians, physical therapists, vocational rehabilitation, pharmacists, HR, all the return to work, all the careers that interact, and others are welcome. It's free. The topic that I'll be presenting is it's next level leadership strategies so that you can thrive, as we kind of what we're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
growing yourself as intentionally as possible so that you can take those steps to move forward. So that is with it's Just Bloom is the website, justbloom.com. And then lastly, coming up on March 1st, I'm also doing I'll be on a webinar, and that is sponsored by Work Comp College. And that the people who are participants and students in the college come from all different walks of life, career paths, again, though that interact with potentially with an injured worker. So the same ones that I mentioned. So the registration is available also there, and you can go to workcomp.com sorry, to register for that webinar, and that is free as well. We'll be talking about claims advocacy during that, and I think that covers everything for me. How about you, Erica?
Yeah, sure. So my link is, you can find my link in my bio or find it there on the screen. So that'll get you to my link tree where I usually post most events that are coming up. So whether it's a workshop or podcasts and things like that, you can find most of everything there. And then my website is ericacshaw.com. So I do have a few things coming up. So next Friday, I will be on the Intentional Conversations podcast led by Nika White. And we'll be talking about leadership and inclusion in the workforce, as well as why a lot of my focus is on coaching multicultural women. And so definitely join for that. And when I have the link, I'll post that on the link tree. And then on February 20th, I'll actually be hosting my Dream Big workshop again. So it's a free webinar that I offer probably every couple of months. So definitely join for that. And we'll be talking more in detail about why people don't go after their dream. How do you take ownership of your dream? And so are you going after someone else's dream for you or your own dream? And so how, getting that kind of clarity can help you expedite actually getting to your dreams. So those are the two that I have coming up right now. But you can find that all on my link tree.
And we all need clarity. Everyone needs clarity, confidence, a vision,
Yep. And I
and
would say, even if
strategy.
you have been on a path for a goal, you may want to revisit
Oh,
and make
yeah.
sure that it still is, the goal that you should be working on. So getting that clarity as well. What about what services you provide? You want to share that as well?
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to. Actually, I stated before that I work with leaders, some in the workers' comp industry, but also anyone who defines themselves as or sees yourself as a leader, whether that's personally or professionally. And I love, love, love equipping you with strategies so that you can identify your vision, your values, and goals, and then make sure that your goals align with your values so that you can thrive, particularly after life changing events in your life, whether that's loss of a job, a divorce, being a caregiver, all of those and more situations have a way of changing our views of ourselves and the future that we want. So that's what I love working with people on. I offer a few different programs. My signature solution program, which I call my 3C reinvention formula, because it's cultivating, clarifying, and increasing confidence to redefine your future, is a 90-day program. I meet with my clients once a week for 12 weeks. And some of that is based upon what they have come to me stating they want to work on. But of course, I learn people very well quickly. That's part of my job. And so I give my clients what I know they need in addition to what they want. So when they finish the 90-day program, I guarantee I can take a person from A to Z when I get to know them well. And we have together put together the program, the subtopics that we'll be working on. And then I also offer a 2-hour intensive for the person who says, I don't have time to be showing up weekly. I have life commitments, work commitments. I just want to sit down and work through some things. That can be done as well. And I'm available for groups. And then that I work virtually internationally, but I'm also willing to work together in person. So not everything has to be done within Zoom. It depends on the location and availability. And then my book, lastly, is 1997 for the people who don't know me at all and just kind of want to see what I'm talking about and learn a little about who I am. So some of my journey is also in the book, as well as some thought provoking questions that I encourage people to actually do, not just read it, answer the questions. I promise it will give you additional clarity and answer some questions that you may have about your next steps. So thanks for the opportunity to share all of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And for me, my signature is one-to-one coaching. And so we really talk about the pathway to your dream. And so that could be a change in your career, getting the promotion, or doing a complete career shift. And so, one, I challenged my clients to dare to dream. And so we talked about that, having all those limiting beliefs and making small goals and things like that. So going after the big dream. Then we build the dream. And so what is the actual plan and strategy to get there? And then lastly is, who are the people that I need? So we build the dream team. And so that is my one-to-one coaching program. The other thing that I do is leadership development for organizations. So I am a John Maxwell certified coach, speaker, and trainer. And so how do we increase the leadership skills within an organization, as well as build connection within an organization and form an inclusive workplace? And as part of that, I also offer DISC. And so DISC personality assessments, I'm a certified DISC trainer as well. And so learning more about how different personalities interact, how you show up. So that DISC profile is also part of your personal brand, and understanding that and how can you utilize it as a strength and make sure it doesn't impair you in what you're trying to do. And so I have a link on my link tree to book a discovery call to discuss any of the services that anyone may be interested in.
Same. And you'll find links on my LinkedIn profile right at the top. And then if you go down to features, you'll see additional ways that you can schedule calls and or purchase my book. This has
Awesome.
been fantastic. Before we close out, does anyone who is still with us have any questions?
And if not, is there anything that any last thoughts you want to give to the folks watching on personal branding as we close out?
Just, I think personal branding is an area that we all can benefit from just by revisiting from time to time. Check in with yourself. How do you do that? You go somewhere where it's quiet, take some pen and a paper, and give some time to just thinking. If you are a person of faith, that would include prayer and asking to hear from God. So you'd be surprised sometimes. You'll be surprised sometimes by the insight that you can get when you just take a moment to be still. And that's in a
Awesome.
different location for everyone. Some people like being outside with nature, walking, others like sitting. So figure out what works for you, but schedule, time block, so that you can incorporate that in your life on a daily basis when possible.
Yeah,
What are your
absolutely.
thoughts, Erica?
The last piece I would say is for the personal brand is don't overthink it. Simplify it down to what are 5 things that I want to be known for? What are 5 things I don't want to be known for? And then as you look at those things on that list, what does a person do, say, dress for those things that you want to be known for? And if there's things that you don't want to be known for, how do you do a double click on what you're doing and making sure it doesn't match up with that? And so
Mhm.
that is a simple, fast way that could take, like 10 minutes to get you started. So we talked about that first, the best next step or simple step. What's a small step? You can do that before going out and, asking 10 people, what do they think? But taking some time to do some self reflection and have personal awareness is a good thing to start with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you to our guest, and then thank you in advance for those who watch this on the replay.
Yes.
Please let us know. Reach out to us individually or together.
Yeah.
Eric and I are a team, so individually or together, whatever works. But we would love to hear from you with your thoughts. So
Yes,
thank you,
definitely. And
everyone.
if we aren't connected already on LinkedIn, definitely reach out and connect. And then also, we plan to try to do these on some frequency. So if there's topics that you'd like to hear, feel free to message us, and we'll, look at those topics as well. But other than
Absolutely.
that, I think